Shalom Chaverim. Everybody should be okay, hopefully. We just came back, all of us, most of us. We came back from New York. You went to do a big prayer at the Rebbe's oil, at the Rebbe's synagogue at 770. And hopefully all the prayers should be fulfilled, all of our prayers, and mainly the prayer that Mashiach should be coming today with the Rebbe together to be with us. At this week's Parsha, that's a little bit connected to our Rebbe that the Hilula is this week, was just yesterday. Something to connect this week's Parsha to that. And in this week's Parsha we have a story, a famous story. Everybody talks about this story. Everybody elaborates about this story. And this is the famous story when Miriam, the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, passed away. And after passing away, there was no water for Am Yisrael, for the Jews to drink. And the Jews were complaining. And when there's nothing to drink, the complaints are coming. And they were complaining to Moshe and Aaron about the water. Why did you bring us to places no water to drink, etc. The details you can look yourself in the Parsha. And as we have the story there in the Parsha that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, go and talk to a rock, and the rock will give water, and this will sanctify God's name for all Am Yisrael, and everybody will see the greatness of Hashem, the way He supplies the water from the rock. And as we know the story, Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron went to the rock, but instead of talking to the rock, as we know the story, they hit the rock. And the rock gave water, and all Jews were very happy. But the one that wasn't happy was Hashem Himself. And He tells Moshe Rabbeinu, because you did not sanctify my name in front of all Am Yisrael, for that reason you and your brother Aaron shall not be entering the land of Israel. And as we know the story going on in the later times, Moshe Rabbeinu kept on pleading and begging by Hashem to forgive him. He asked for forgiveness, and he asked God to please allow him to go into Israel, and nothing worked. He was not able to go into Israel, all because of that story. All the commentaries are elaborating on this story, and the question is, why did Moshe Rabbeinu not talk to the rock? Why did he hit the rock? And it caused them not going into Israel. It caused them something that he was, simply seems like, was very unhappy about it. Why did he hit the rock? There's many explanations from many great rabbis. They say about one of the great rabbis, is called by his book that he published, and it's called Sfas Emes. He's the second Rebbe of the Gur Hasidim, well known today, the Gur Hasidim. He was the second Rebbe, the Sfas Emes. And they say about him that every year, when it came this week's Parsha, he would give another way of explaining the story. What happened there, that Moshe Rabbeinu, instead of talking to the rock, he hit the rock. But we're just going to give one short explanation that could really bring out another perspective of that story. And we can relate this to our Rebbe, that, as we said, his Hilula was yesterday, that we all went to see him. And one of the explanations being given about the reason why he was not talking to the rock, why he hit the rock. Moshe Rabbeinu did that. He did not make a mistake. He did not forget. There was no other reason. He knew very well that God told him, talk to the rock. He knew very well, but he will not talk to the rock. He will hit the rock. He's going to have to pay the consequences. God will not be happy. Still, nevertheless, he went and he hit the rock. And the reason is because he said to himself, if I will talk to the rock, and the rock will give water, this will be embarrassing, a shame for my nation, the Jewish nation. Because everybody in the world will say, look at Am Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the rock. The rock listens. Moshe Rabbeinu once spoke to a rock that doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have a heart, it doesn't have a mouth. And he spoke to the rock, and the rock listens. Am Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to them for 40 years. And they did not listen many, many times, as we know this story. Moshe Rabbeinu says to himself, this will bring out the entire Jewish nation, not in a nice picture. He says, I can't do that. I can't do something, even though this is what God wants me to do. But I can't do something that this will come down as not a good picture for Am Yisrael. When he said, I will hit the rock. I know God will not be happy with me, but I have to be concerned for Am Yisrael, that Am Yisrael should not be ashamed from that story, should not be embarrassed from that story. It will be a big embarrassment. Moshe Rabbeinu talks to the rock and it listens. Moshe Rabbeinu talks to the Jews and they don't listen. That explanation brings out a very deep leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is being a leader of Am Yisrael. He doesn't see himself. He does not look what's good for him. He does not look even what Hashem will say when he does the other way. He sees one thing, what is good for Am Yisrael. When he feels by his action that Am Yisrael will be ashamed, he said, let me get punished. I may lose the greatest thing when this is going into Israel. I will lose it, but I will not do something that this will shame the Jews. And this lesson brings out what is a Jewish leader. The beauty of a Jewish leader is that his whole being is not for himself. His whole being is, what is it for the people? His whole being is that Am Yisrael should do well. And this the same is so in our Rebbe today, and we see it through all the stories that we experience with him now. That his whole life was one thing. What is there for Am Yisrael? Even though he may lose from that. As the famous story, to say it in very, very short, and this was a story prior of the Rebbe being Rebbe, it was in 1949. We mentioned the story many times. And it was that fellow, this big chassid, that passed away before the holiday of Shavuot. And they had to bury him, but they couldn't get a certificate from the doctor in order to release him from the hospital. The Rebbe asked his people to go and look for a doctor to release the body from the hospital. And he said we should pay any price in order this chassid should be able to be buried before the holiday of Shavuot. He should not have to wait for Shavuot or Shabbat coming 3 days before being buried. They couldn't find a doctor that agreed to do it even for money. And finally the Rebbe said, what is going on? Why can't we find anybody? And they told the Rebbe, there's one doctor that he says, I will do so. I will do it. I will give that release papers. But I don't want money for that. I want the Rebbe to promise me his world to come. If he promises me the world to come, I will write that paper. And their secretaries tell the Rebbe, how could we represent this to you? And the Rebbe says right away, for sure, I will definitely agree. And they immediately called in the doctor, and the Rebbe signs his entire world to come to this doctor. Just sign a paper to release the body of the hospital. This is a leader. He did not even care for his world to come, for his Gan Eden, for his well-being. If it can help another Jew, or not even a live Jew, the Jew wasn't alive anymore, just to bury him, just to should be able to come to this place of rest in peace, not to be in the hospital for the next 3 days. He was ready to give away his entire world to come. That's called a Jewish leader. This is our Rebbe, giving himself completely away to the Jewish nation. It's not about himself. It's about what can I do for someone else. Have a good Shabbos. Let's all learn the great lesson from the Rebbe.